Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Tom and today we are looking ahead to all things Club World Cup Fantasy Match Day 5. It's time for the quarterfinals. The deadline is tonight at 7 PM UK time. We've got 4 matches to sift through in this video. We're going to cover the top picks, the top captains, and try and find some scouting bonus differentials. And then at the end, I will talk briefly through my transfer plans for the match day. So do drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. Do subscribe to the channel. We'll have Club World Cup content all the way through to the end of the tournament, the final in match day 7. And as I'm sure we're all happy about, the FPL content is starting to ramp up again with the game surely now just a few weeks away. So without further ado, let's get into it. That's right, so the first game of the quarterfinals is Fluminesz against Al Hilal. The Saudi team against the Brazilian team. Al Hilal obviously had the shock of the round in the last 16, beating Manchester City. They've got some interesting picks, none other than Leonardo, the forward, who is 15% owned, but he's only $4 million or euros, whichever currency they use in the game. But so he is, I guess, a perfect budget enabler to allow you to pack your midfield, because there's plenty of big midfielders, as we'll discover throughout the video, that I think you're going to want. So Leonardo is without doubt one of the top transfers in this week. He scored against Man City as well, so he's in good form. And yeah, he's so cheap. Elsewhere, with the word of caution, their star midfielder, Salam Al-Dasawi, he is out of the tournament. So still owned by 4% of managers, but he will not feature. So just a warning there, because he's not flagged in the game like he would be in FPL. Defensively, they've got some scouting bonus. Renan Lodi is 3.4% owned at the time of recording, which is about 12 o'clock on deadline day. So I guess there's a chance he goes to 5%, but probably not. So you could potentially get some scouting bonus there if you're backing Al Hilal. Koulibaly obviously is a bit of a goal threat, as we know, big header from a corner. And Ruben Neves has enjoyed a really strong tournament so far, scoring and assisting in the 4 games that they've played so far. So I think there's 4 fair picks from Al Hilal that you can look at, but yeah, none other than Leonardo, who I may well be buying to help me afford a couple of bigger midfielders, just 4 million. So definitely consider him, for example, a Haaland replacement this week. Moving on to Fluminesz, unfortunately Fabio, who has got 3 10-pointers, I think, 3 clean sheets, he has dipped over the 5% mark, which is a shame, because obviously you don't get the scouting bonus anymore. But you know, if you still fancy it, then there is a clean sheet there potentially to be had against Al Hilal. I think Al Hilal are favourites for the game, but only just. So there's potential there. In the defence, there is some scouting bonus. Freitas is the highest scoring defender that they've got. He's returned in every single game, helped by a goal that he scored in the game that they did concede in. However, you've got Samuel Xavier, who is just 2.6% owned. So if you're looking for some scouting bonus potential, he is the one to go for there. Further up the pitch, John Arias is their talisman, set pieces. He's got a goal, an assist, and I think another assist in the tournament so far. It hasn't got a picture for some reason, but he is definitely their talisman. He's crept over the 5% mark, which is a shame. But if you're looking for a attacking asset from Fluminesz, he is the one to get, without doubt. And then just a bit of a crazy differential. Nonato, who scored in the last round, is eligible for scouting bonus this time and is owned by just 0.7% of Club World Cup fantasy managers. Right then, let's move on to Chelsea against Palmeiro. We'll cover off Chelsea first because there's a lot to talk about. I'll try and keep it brief, even though I'm sure people who watch the channel regularly know I'm a big Chelsea fan. And my interest in this tournament has suddenly picked up as we seem to have lucked out in the draw. But anyway, so just to caveat this, Caicedo is suspended, which is obviously a big blow. Lavia is doubt, which again is a big blow. Pedro Neto, unfortunately, the tragic news about Diogo Jota, which obviously everyone at Scout sends their thoughts to the football community and everyone else who is affected by it. Obviously, Pedro Neto played with Jota at Wolves and for Portugal more recently, so he is obviously pretty cut up about the situation, as you would expect. And Maresca has said yesterday in the press conference that it will be completely Neto's decision if he plays or not. You can look at it one or two ways. He's going to want to play, he'll want to score for him, I guess, and, hold up a message or, show his respects that way, or he's not in the right frame of mind to play, which is obviously fair enough and understandable. There's nothing as fancy managers, and obviously it pales in comparison to how important the situation is, but there's nothing we can do. I think we're not going to find out pre-deadline if he's going to play or not. So if you've got him, you don't sell. If not, I guess Madueke would come in and potentially be a good option, but again, we're not going to know. So I would park Neto in the don't buy, don't sell category for me. Elsewhere for Chelsea, so the Lavia, Caicedo are out. Badiashile is a big doubt because he was seen on crutches. For me, there's 5 players I think will definitely start that are all great fantasy picks. Sanchez in goal, I think is a good shout, especially with our potentially favourable semi-final as well. Colwill is the defender to get for scouting bonus, still 3.7% owned. And then you sacrifice the scouting bonus for Cucurella or James if you want the attacking threat. James, there's a fair chance he'll play in deep line midfield this game, so his attacking threat will potentially be lessened. Although obviously we saw he's a big threat from set pieces as well in the last round. But Cucurella's the one to get. He had a shot cleared off the line and then another shot saved against Benfica, especially if we keep the same system, which we could do, despite the midfield absentees. He is the one to buy, and somebody I'll probably buy myself. Palmer is always there on penalties. Due an attack and return maybe, although in this tournament I've been more impressed with Enzo Fernandez, who I think is going to be primed for another big game against Brazilian opposition. The Argentinian rivalry there. I'm sure he'll be very, very keen to impress. And then up front, you've got Jackson and Delap. Jackson is back fit now. I think there's a chance he comes back in. Delap's played a lot of minutes. The heat and the short turnarounds. The semi-final's probably more at risk for Delap, I guess. Again, I think he's don't buy, don't sell, because I think regardless of whether he starts or not, he'll probably be coming off early in the 60th, 65th minute for Jackson, just to keep things fresh, especially if it's hot in Philadelphia tonight. So there's plenty of picks for Chelsea, and if you're playing the odds, not just me as a Chelsea fan being biased, but if you're playing the odds, it makes sense to load up on Chelsea just because they have the best chance of getting to the final. And they're currently the favourites to win it as well due to PSG's tough draws. However, if they want to win it, they're going to have to beat Palmeiras, who you can craft a narrative for them as well. They're going to... The Brazilian teams, the South American teams in this tournament have been so up for it. Their chance to get one over, the richer, more, I guess, more elitist European clubs. And, Chelsea without Caicedo, it's every Chelsea fan's worst nightmare. So you can definitely craft a narrative that we're going to struggle tonight. And if you're buying into that, there's plenty of picks to choose from. The very popular Palmeiras defender, whose name has just escaped me, Piquerez, he is suspended. So the penalty-taking defender that lots of people own, he is suspended. There's Gay, who is 2.4% owned, so scouting bonus applies there. The goalkeeper, Weverton, is over 5% owned. However, they've kept a few clean sheets in this tournament so far, so definitely not a bad pick. Up front, they've got 2 decent forwards in Esteval. You can write the narrative here. He's going to be joining Chelsea. This could well be his last Palmeiras game, or he could knock us out the tournament before he joins us in a few weeks. He hasn't exactly lit up the tournament, so it's a big punt, but the narrative's there if you want to buy into it. Paulinho has scored a couple of goals so far and is just 2.2% owned. And then Rios is the pick of the midfielders at 1.2% owned, who again has enjoyed himself in the tournament so far. Just before we get into PSG, a reminder, if you're listening on the podcast, to whack on your automatic downloads, as that really, really helps us out, and make sure you're subscribed. So PSG, as a bit of a different format on the video because there's so many players you can pick from, and I'm guessing lots of people have already got loads of them as well. Hakimi goes without saying, incredible attacking defender. Mendes the same. Donnarumma's a great goalkeeper, albeit expensive. Kvaratskhelia, again, I think he's in everyone's teams. Vitinha, the cheap penalty taker, 6.1 million. João Neves and Ruiz enjoyed themselves in the last game. Again, cheap differential picks. Doué, yet to really catch fire, but you suspect it's only a matter of time. And then the one that is still highly owned at 17%, but is back fit now, is Dembele. So Dembele's definitely one to try and fit in if you can. Would it be a priority over Palmer? Is kind of a debate, I think, possibly. I guess it depends how much PSG you want, and they're not guarantees to go through against Bayern, so there is maybe a case that you want to hedge your bet slightly on Bayern Munich, who we will talk about next. So Bayern Munich, obviously Kane and Elise, highly owned picks. Coman seems to have the nod. Musiala's been benched a few times. Coman seems to be starting and is the most differential pick there. And then Stanisic is the defender to get. He's the only defender to start all 4 games, I'm pretty sure. And he's still in the scouting bonus territory if you think they're going to keep out PSG, which is a pretty tall order, although Botafogo did manage it in the group stage. The final quarterfinal is Dortmund against Real Madrid. And, Real Madrid are the big favourites, but Dortmund do have some interesting fantasy picks. Guirassy, I think, has come onto everyone's radars in this tournament. So good, really. Scored twice against Monterrey in the last round. So he's a pick up front. Brandt, unfortunately, he's been benched twice now, so I don't think you can go there despite the scouting bonus potential. Joe Bellingham, we're going to miss out on the Bellingham derby because Job is suspended, so that's just a word of warning there. And then the defender Svensson is got a couple of attacking returns this tournament. The flying wing back, always a good shout. And then if you're looking for some scouting bonus, you've got Anton, the centre back, who is currently owned by 4% of Club World Cup fantasy managers. They will be playing against Real Madrid, who, again, like PSG, there's a plethora of options to consider. You've got, at the back, Trent got his first assist for his new club in the last round with a cross that we've come to love, or we loved in FPL for years. And then Garcia, the other fullback, is a lot less owned, a lot cheaper, and he's returned in every game in the tournament so far. At just 4.9 million. Yeah, he won a penalty. He got an assist, in the game that Real Madrid conceded in. Moving into midfield, Bellingham, obvious pick. Valverde, again, another decent pick. Both got good points in the tournament. Gula is the differential. Again, he has enjoyed himself in the Club World Cup. And then the forwards, that's where it's interesting. Mbappe came back in the last game for 25 minutes. He managed to get on after coming out of hospital, which has kind of derailed and disrupted his tournament a bit. Vinicius Jr. is probably the safer pick for minutes, and he's almost got half the ownership compared to Mbappe, so it's probably more of a mover for your mini league and your overall rank. And then Gonzalo Garcia, who continues to impress and make the most of Mbappe's absence, scored again in the last round. But, it's tricky with Mbappe being back, whether he's going to keep playing or not. So, there's maybe an argument to sell him and move him on. So we'll cover off captains now. We'll go back to the bracket, which I'll bring up on screen. So, obviously, you change your captain every day or every match. There's a 2 a.m. game tonight or tomorrow morning. So if you want to move your captain off Al Hilal Fluminesz play, you're going to have to do that quite late. But yeah, so in the first game, Fluminesz against Al Hilal, I think you've got to pick. You got to back either, for me, the Fluminense defense or the Al Hilal attack through Leonardo, or the Fluminense defense through a defender. And as we discussed, there are a couple with scouting bonus. Samuel Xavier, Fabio, the goalkeeper, doesn't have scouting bonus, but obviously has save points. And then Thiago Silva does have scouting bonus as well and is a bit of an aerial threat. So backing one of them, you could get that 8-9 pointer with a clean sheet. If you're happy with that as a captain, that's fair enough. I would probably, looking at the bookies odds and the way that Al Hilal played against Manchester City in the last round, I would probably favour Leonardo for captaincy in match 1 of the match day. Moving on to Chelsea, Palmeiro, I think, again, looking at the bookies, they're backing Chelsea, so I think it's quite tricky, really, because I guess Cucurella is the upside pick, decent chance of a clean sheet, decent chance of a goal, especially if we play the system that we did last time. And again, you'll see the team sheet if you stay up late enough, 12:45 in the morning, you'll see the team sheet. So, if the system looks like Cucurella will be bombing down the left, then I probably would captain him. Second choice, Palmer obviously is a fair pick. Neto if he starts, and then Enzo Fernandez I really like as well. I'd probably be put off the lap just because of a minute's risk. So yeah, I'd go Cucurella if the system allows, and then Palmer or Enzo Fernandez. Then, I guess we're all hoping that we will have a return by then, but if not, we move on to PSG Bayern Munich. This is hard to call. I think both teams to score is probably a fair bet, so we're ruling out Hakimi, although he scored twice in the tournament, but you're probably looking at Kvaratskhelia or Harry Kane, the most consistent players there. And then I guess if we're still looking for a return, in the final game, Dortmund-Real Madrid, you're probably looking at an Mbappe or a Vinicius. So yeah, it's important to make sure you've got all 4 matches covered off, as obviously the captaincy chances, as the games become closer, harder to predict, and there's less of them, the chances of nailing that captaincy do decrease. Although if you're still holding your max captainship, I would save it for the final, because that's obviously where you've got the lowest chance of nailing the captaincy haul. Right, so as you can see on the screen, I've got my team, as it currently looks for match day 5. For the podcast, I'll just read it out. In goal, Sanchez and Edison, who's obviously been eliminated. Hakimi, Piquerez, who's suspended. Nuno Mendes, Anton, Gvardiol, Mateus Nunes, Kvaratskhelia, Fernandez, Elise, Doué, Haaland, Delap, and Guirassy. Unfortunately, I went big on Man City in the last round, and they obviously have been knocked out of the tournament. So my 4 free transfers will primarily focus on those guys. So on the screen, we will take out Haaland, Nunes, Gvardiol. Piquerez is the other one. He is suspended for the match day, so he's coming out as well. I'm just going to keep Edison, I think. I don't think it's worth a hit to get in a second goalkeeper, especially with Sanchez actually having a fairly decent fixture this round with a decent chance of a clean sheet. So we've got 4 spaces to play with, 2 defenders, a midfielder and a striker. One player that's coming in without a doubt, and we'll just put him in straight away, is Marc Cucurella. As we mentioned in the top picks part of the video, he is, he's so attacking. He had a shot cleared off the line in the last round, forced the keeper into another good save as well. So he's coming in. So then now there's 3 spaces to play with. The original plan was Neto. The original plan was something like this. So let's get Neto in the team. So the original plan was Neto, Mbappe, and a Fluminense defender with scouting bonus. So that was kind of my initial plan. So that would give me Neto, Mbappe, Samuel Xavier, and Cucurella in as my 4 free transfers. making sure I've got cover in every match, with captaincy options as well sprinkled around. However, obviously, with the awful Diogo Jota news, Pedro Neto is now a doubt for the game, so I don't think you can buy him. So that plan has kind of gone out the window, and I've already got Enzo Fernandez. So the new plan is to introduce Leonardo into the fray as the very, very cheap forward for Al Hilal, who scored, as we can see, 14 points against Man City, 2 goals, shots on target, and scouting bonus, which, to be fair, he doesn't have anymore. And then that gives me enough money for basically any midfielder. I could get Dembele, I could get Palmer. Probably favour Palmer at the moment, just because of Chelsea's, again, their potential semi-final. So my team would look something like that. And then I've got money in the bank, so I can, instead of getting Samuel Xavier or Fluminesz, who would, of course, be competing with Leonardo for points, I can get Trent. So that's probably where we're looking at the minute, I think. Trent could be any defender. I could still get the Fluminesz, and then I've probably got guarantee of 1 return in the first game. But again, I get the captaincy wrong. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's pretty tricky, that defender slot. And then Palmer could be Dembele. But as it stands, I will be taking out Haaland, Núñez, Gvardiol, and Piquerez for Trent, Palmer, Leonardo, and Cucurella. My captains will be Leonardo, then Cucurella or Palmer, depending on the system. Then probably Kvaratskhelia, and then finally would have to be Trent. Going through that, the captains is potentially slightly weak, so there may well be a case to get Vitinha and get Vinicius Junior in instead of Palmer and Leonardo. But as it stands, those are my thinking. The only chip I've got left is my max captain, and I'll be saving that for the final. So hopefully by the time the next video comes around, I'll be back in the top 100 with a big captaincy haul. We'll see about that. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do drop a like, do subscribe. Make sure you follow us on your podcast channels if you're listening over there, and stay tuned for we've got an EFL video coming later because that game has just dropped. We've got more FPL content over the weekend before we head into the Club World Cup match day 6. Thank you very, very much for watching, guys. Have a great weekend.